It is 9 o'clock. We will begin the hearing for Jason Ballard. He has been newly notified of this hearing and has requested this hearing. We do not see him in the building, but we will proceed at this point as the hearing was scheduled. Let me remind everyone that this is a court hearing. There will be no questions from the audience. This is strictly the witnesses that are called by the attorneys involved in this case. So with that, Mr. Berkshire.
Yeah, on, I believe it was June 1st, Chief Rainey had made a recommendation to the Board of Works regarding discipline for Patrolman Jason Ballard. I, on June 1st, 2015, prepared a letter that informed him of his right to a hearing. He contacted my office and demanded that a hearing be held, and we scheduled it for today's date, and I haven't heard from him since. He knew about today's hearing, though. I would like to call Officer Chief Ray Rainey.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm under penalties for perjury the testimony you're about to give should be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, ma'am.
Please state your name.
Wendell Ray Rainey, Jr.
And you're employed by the City of Peru.
Yes, sir.
How?
As the Chief of Police
And how long have you been the Chief of Police?
since November the 10th of 2014.
And is Jason Ballard a patrolman that works for you within the department?
Yes, sir.
And at some point, did you make a recommendation to the Board of Works to terminate his employment?
Yes, I did.
Do you know when that was?
I believe it was June the 1st of 2015.
Is that still your recommendation?
Yes, it is.
And in a letter dated June 1st, 2015, did you explain the reasons why you felt Jason Ballard should be terminated from the City of Peru Police Department?
Yes, I did.
Have there been previous disciplinary orders against Jason Ballard?
Yes, there has been.
Like prior to you coming here and being the chief?
Yes, sir.
Was he disciplined by Joni Kennedy prior to your arrival?
Yes, he was.
Was he disciplined by Officer Rick Keller, who was the acting chief before you came here?
Yes, he was.
And I think he even ultimately was disciplined by Russ Tussey, his immediate supervisor. Is that correct?
Correct.
And did there come an incident where Jason Ballard missed mandatory firearm training on May 7th, 2015?
Yes, sir.
And did he contact anyone about missing that training?
He contacted, I guess first he was contacted by one of the other officers here from Peru Police Department, Colton Pittner, via a text message. And then he arrived at the police department approximately 30 minutes after his scheduled time for his firearms training, and he made contact with Assistant Chief Rick Keller.
And do you know what the first contact he made was, what he was saying?
Well, his first contact was like I said, was a text message, and it said that I'm on my way from the hospital, was there, BC, of my daughter. I spaced and forgot to call. Profanity. Is he with you? I'm assuming meaning Chief Keller. And then it says, well, I'm getting fired now.
Was he aware, that being Ballard, that because of his prior disciplinary record that he was close to being fired?
Yes, I had previously disciplined him, and I told him he was at a level 7 at that time, discipline level 7, and I told him that one more violation of the Peru SOPs, whether it be intentional or unintentional, would result in my request and recommendation to the board that he be terminated.
And a level 7 you can actually be terminated at that point, correct?
Yes, sir.
The maximum sanction for disciplinary level 7 is termination. And you had chose not to terminate him at that time.
Correct.
And at that time, did you talk to him about his career?
I sure did. And at that point, he was to give me a letter stating how he was going to turn things around from his professionalism on the department, how he was going to handle himself from there forward in order to stay from that discipline level 8.
Right. So he was at a 7, and you had a discussion with him about not getting to an 8, and that ultimately, even at a 7, he could have been terminated, but you chose not to. And he said he would write you a letter and explain to you how he was going to make himself a better police officer, correct?
Correct.
And did he, in fact, write you a letter?
He did write me a letter. It really did not have any substance of how he was going to improve himself.
Well, instead of talking about how he's going to improve himself, did he tell you how you had it all wrong?
Yes, he did.
So let me get this straight. He said he'd write you a letter saying how he was going to improve himself, and then he wrote you a letter about how you were picking on him, essentially, right?
Correct.
I'd offer Exhibit 1. So you never got a letter about how he was going to improve himself?
No, sir.
Did you receive some emails from Jason Ballard on May 19th and May 11th? It's been marked Exhibit 2.
Yes, I did.
Okay, you recognize those emails or text messages?
Yes.
And who are they from?
They're from Jason Ballard.
And what's he saying in the May 11th emails?
He says if I'm getting paperwork for my daughter being in the hospital and still losing my job because my family comes first, then it's fair to say that I feel like no matter what, even family emergencies doesn't matter to anyone. With all due respect, Chief, if I'm losing my job over this and there's no point, I know 2 are on the chopping block, 1 being me.
What's he talking about there? Do you know?
I think that's in respect to the conversation we'd had when I disciplined him prior, when I told him that he was at a level 7, and one more neglect on his part or violation of an SOP would result in my recommendation for termination.
And then on May 19th, is he sending you a text message that says that he feels like this is a personal attack on him?
Yes, sir. It says, with all due respect, I'm now taking offense to what is taking place and feels that this is a personal attack against me.
Okay. I'd offer Exhibit 2. So what happened is that Officer Ballard missed training on May 15th, 2014, correct?
Yes, sir.
Or 2015, correct? And, or May, did I say May 7th? May 7th, 2015, he missed training, right?
Correct.
And then at some point, did he present to you a letter that he had from Dr. Powell stating that he had been to the ER with his daughter?
Yes, sir, he did.
So he was saying that I was at the hospital with my daughter, and why aren't you leaving me alone, essentially?
Correct.
And come to find out that he didn't go to the hospital, correct?
Correct.
How'd you determine that?
Well, speaking with Jason Ballard in the presence of Assistant Chief Keller on one incident in my office, as well as speaking with Jason Ballard with Mayor Jim Walker up in Mayor Walker's office, the stories were very conflicting. One story one day would be that he took his daughter to the emergency room. The next story would be that the mother of the daughter, took the daughter to the emergency room, and then there was a story that we, meaning him and the mother of the daughter, took her to the emergency room for examination. Things just didn't add up right. I was suspicious from the start. I then looked a little further into that, went to Duke's Hospital, and I spoke with Duke's Human Resources Director and asked her if the doctor that he claimed examined his daughter, if he was employed there. And she said she didn't believe that that doctor had been there for a couple months, and made a phone call and then provided a schedule for physicians for the emergency room that showed the doctor hadn't worked there since March the 20th. I also asked her if they had any type of security cameras that we could get a copy of the doorways as well as the emergency room on that date from noon to 4, which she also provided for me. Assistant Chief Keller and I reviewed that disc to find that there was no doctor that he claimed examined his daughter. Jason Ballard did not show up on that video, nor did the mother of the daughter or the daughter. Continued then to ask and talk with Jason Ballard, and he stuck to the same story and said that in the meeting with Assistant Chief Keller and I, said that we were using his daughter's illness to terminate him. He also made the same statement to the mayor and I that we were using his daughter's illness in order to terminate him. When I received the letter I asked Jason for some proof, as well as did Assistant Chief Keller on May the 7th, some information from Duke's emergency room that they were there. And about a week later, we received the letter from the doctor. I called the doctor and talked to him over the phone to confirm that he was aware of the letter, as well as the substance in it, and he went ahead to reiterate the story that Jason was telling me. Since then, I've talked with Rick Keller, and I went down to talk with the doctor, and he admitted that Jason Ballard had called him and asked him for a favor, and then that he wrote this letter for Jason stating that he had examined his daughter and met with Jason Ballard the morning before that we had the last hearing on June the 1st at about 8:30, and advised him of the information that I had, and that I was moving forward with a meeting with the Board of Works that morning at 9 o'clock to present this information.
So you were able to verify that Jason Ballard wasn't at Duke's Hospital on May 7th, nor was his daughter?
Correct.
And in fact, the doctor that allegedly had treated his daughter didn't work at Duke's Hospital on May 7th?
Correct.
And you then were able to get the Duke's Hospital surveillance footage from the emergency room, and you and Rick Keller reviewed that?
Yes, we did.
And it's approximately 4 hours long?
Correct.
You just go from noon to 4?
From noon to 4.
And not only is Jason Ballard not in the footage, there's no child admitted to the ER on that day, is there?
Not at that age, there was not. There was a toddler in the emergency room, but not an 8-month-old.
Okay. Exhibit 3 is the actual footage from Duke's Hospital. It's 4 hours long. Ray's testified that he and Rick Keller both have reviewed it, and Jason Ballard is not present on it. Further, Officer Rick Keller will testify here later. Did Jason Ballard send you some emails?
Yes, he did.
All right. I'll hand you one been marked. Hold on, let me mark it first. That's 4. I've been handing you what's been marked Exhibit 4. You recognize that?
Yes, sir.
What is it?
It's an email from Jason Ballard to myself, as well as he had carbon copied Assistant Chief Keller,
And what date does it have?
May the 7th.
And in it, what is Jason Ballard trying to tell you?
He's saying that, no matter how you look at being late, he's late, and he's tried to inform us of the tardiness. For the past few days, his daughter's been running with a slight fever and not acting herself. As the days progressed, so did her symptoms. Today, prior to training, she began throwing up and felt very warm. We took her to the hospital, and that was the only thing I had on my mind. I attempted to make contact with Assistant Chief Keller with no answer, which he checked his phone and said it was probably because he was in the basement. Showed up late to attempt to training, but advised he would not be conducting the training at that point. So I'm not one to fight a discipline when I'm in the wrong, and will take whatever comes to me in regards to this incident. I'm asking, due to the emergency circumstances involved, that I have a bit of leniency in regards to whatever discipline I receive. I understand where I stand, and I'm asking to retain my employment with the department. Any other discipline would be understandable. Thank you, Jason Ballard.
So in that email, he's still saying he went to the doctor?
Correct.
All right, I'm going to hand you what's been marked Exhibit 5. You recognize that email?
Yes, sir.
All right, and what does that one say? What's the date on it?
May the 13th.
All right, and who's it from?
It is from Jason Ballard.
And what's he say in that email?
It says, "Gentlemen, I'm having a bad taste in my mouth with how my family emergency and being late to training is being handled. The training was slotted for 2 hours, so I'm confused on why it couldn't be done when I was late 20 minutes, and speaking with other officers, the training could have been done in the time frame, as training only took an average of an hour and a half at the most to complete. Secondly, I was scheduled to train with Grant, and he was not present, so he not there to attend training, and how was that handled? I have no reason to make up a story of my daughter being in the hospital as a scapegoat, so needing paperwork has made me think. I feel that my daughter being in the hospital is of a private family matter, and does not concern the department. When Mitchell was absent from training, stating he fell off a ladder, did he need paperwork to submit showing that happened? I'm a bit disturbed at how my family emergency has been portrayed, as it has had nothing been given a little bit of professional decency and being left in the dark as far as what resolution can be to this. With all due respect, if your children were in the hospital, anyone else would have done the same. I attempted to make contact with Assistant Chief Keller with no response, so I made the appropriate attempt in informing my situation. I would appreciate the professionalism of being informed regarding the incident."
So that's on May what?
May the 13th.
So he's still telling you that he went to the doctor at that point?
Correct.
And in fact, he wouldn't use his daughter as a scapegoat. He's telling you that in the email?
Yes, sir.
But that's exactly what he did.
Correct.
Exhibit 4 and 5.
For purposes of the record, let it show that exhibits 1 through 5 have been omitted.
All right, I've got exhibits 6 and 7. Can you identify these?
Yes, sir. Exhibit 6 is the first contact that Jason Ballard made, and that was with Patrolman Colton Pittner.
And you've seen those text messages?
Yes, I have.
Okay. And you've got a screenshot there of them?
Correct.
And what's the other exhibit?
Exhibit 7 was some messages on May the 7th and May the 13th to Assistant Chief Keller.
And have you seen those before?
Yes, I have.
And again, these are in regards to Ballard still saying that he's been to the hospital with his daughter.
Correct.
Exhibit 6 and 7. So, in the letter that you dated June 1st, 2015, to the Board of Works and to Jason Ballard, did you lay out the reasons that you were asking for his termination?
Yes, I did.
On my hand, it's been marked Exhibit 8. Do you recognize that?
Yes, sir.
What is it?
It is the letter that I sent to the Board of Works members on June the 1st, 2015, giving the justification for my recommendation to terminate Jason Ballard.
Okay, let's go over it. Obviously, the newest conduct was that on May 7th, 2015, he did not show up for firearms training, correct?
Correct.
He claimed that his daughter was at the hospital with 103-degree fever, correct?
Correct.
And through your investigation, you were able to determine that he had not gone to the hospital.
Correct.
And Dr. Jerry Powell, who's here today, in fact, verified to you that he had not seen Jason Ballard's daughter on May 7th for treatment.
Yes, he did.
Whether it be at Duke's or anywhere else.
Correct.
Okay. And did Officer Ballard continue to state that he'd been, even a week after he'd been after May 7th, did he continue to state that he'd been to the doctor in the emergency room?
He contended that all the way up to through that 8:30 meeting that I had with him on June the 1st. When I presented and told him what I had, he said, "How can I prove it?"
So what
to
did you
that
tell
point,
him?
I told him that I had spoken with Dr. Powell, and that he had told me that the story was fabricated, and that Jason had contacted him for a favor.
Okay. What violations of the SOPs did you find he committed in making up this elaborate excuse for missing training?
Well, it falls under the conduct unbecoming, where it says that the department's employees shall conduct themselves at all times in a manner that reflects most favorably upon the department. There were 11 different incidents that I documented on different days, different conversations, different emails that had transpired. And so there was 11 counts of conduct unbecoming, as well as a 12th count, which is a Class B offense, failure to attend mandatory training, that states employees of the Peru Police Department will not be absent from any mandated activity or their duty assignment without the authorization of their immediate supervisor. So that's one Class B and then 11 Class C offenses.
The Class B was for missing the training.
Correct.
And then the 11 Class C's were for the lies he stated afterwards.
Correct.
And can you go over those?
Yes, sir. And the first one dealt with a text message on May the 7th of 2015, where Patrolman Ballard responded untruthfully to a text from the Peru Police Department. Patrolman Colton Pittner stating, "I'm on my way from the hospital, was there because of my daughter. I spaced it and forgot to call. Profanity, is he with you? Well, I'm getting fired now."
So that is when he first concocted the "I'm at the doctor" story, and he told Pittner he was at the hospital, correct?
Correct.
All right, what was the next incident?
It was on May the 7th, 2015, when Patrolman Ballard gave an untruthful statement to Assistant Chief Rick Keller as to why he was unable to attend mandatory firearms training. Patrolman Jason Ballard advised he had taken his daughter, who had a 103-degree fever, to the Duke's Hospital emergency room.
And in fact, he hadn't gone to the emergency room.
Correct.
So second lie. And what was the next one?
Then on May the 7th, 2015, he sent an untruthful email to me stating that he was late for training due to his daughter being ill with a fever, throwing up, and felt warm. He also advised that we took her to the hospital, and that was the only thing I had going on in my head. He also stated, "I am asking, due to the emergency circumstances involved, that I have a bit of leniency in regards to whatever discipline I receive."
And what was, those were all on May 7th. What was the next one?
May 11th, I had a telephone conversation with Patrolman Ballard, and he continued to be untruthful, advising me that his daughter's mother took her to the hospital, and he was not sure what time his daughter left the hospital.
Okay, what was the next one?
It was also on the 11th. He sent me a text that stated, if I'm getting paperwork for my daughter being in the hospital and still losing my job because my family comes first, then it's fair to say that I feel like no matter what, even family emergencies doesn't matter to anyone.
Okay, the next one.
May the 13th, 2015, he was untruthful with Assistant Chief Keller when he sent him a text stating, I would hope this could be an exception because of my daughter. It was an emergency and it was the only thing on my mind.
And then the next one on May 13th.
He presented a letter to me from Dr. Jerry Howe stating that Officer Jason Ballard brought his daughter to the Peru ER on Thursday, May the 7th at 1 o'clock for a high fever. I saw Mr. Ballard and his daughter for this as a favor since I was there. If you have any questions regarding this matter, please feel free to contact me. It was addressed to whom it may concern and signed sincerely, Jerry, our pal, MD.
It's Dr. Powell, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. There's a typo in that sentence. The beginning, calling him Hal instead of Powell.
Yes.
Okay. And then on May 13th, the next one, number 8.
On the 13th, Patrolman Ballard met with Assistant Chief Keller and myself in my office. He continued with his untruthfulness, advising that he was at the ER, but his daughter's mother took her to the ER. He also advised that upon receiving a text from Pittner, that he departed the ER, went to his own residence to obtain his police vehicle and police equipment before heading to training.
Number 9.
Again, on May the 13th, 2015, he sent me an email stating, I'm having a bad taste in my mouth with how my family emergency and being late to training is being handled. He also stated, I have no reason to make up a story of my daughter being in a hospital as a scapegoat. He then advised, I'm a bit disturbed at how my family emergency has been portrayed as it has and not being given a little bit of professional decency and being left in the dark as far as what a resolution can be to this. His final deceptive statement was, with all due respect, if your children were in the hospital, anyone else would have done the same. This is another example of what I consider deceptive behavior.
And then was there an incident on May 14th?
Yes, the following day, on May the 14th, he met with Peru Mayor Jim Walker and myself up in the mayor's office. During that meeting, he had very conflicting stories dealing with the time he arrived at the ER, the amount of time that he was at the ER, the time he departed the ER to going to training, as well as his presence during his daughter's examination, and who took their daughter to the ER. Patrolman Ballard continued deceitfulness by accusing Mayor Walker and myself of using his daughter's illness to fire him.
Then was there another incident on May 22nd?
On May the 22nd, Assistant Chief Keller and I received an email from Patrolman Ballard that accused me of causing Patrolman Ballard's problems in his personal life as well as work due to the fact that I was attempting to contact a family member of Patrolman Ballard through human resources at her work. He also advised that I pulled her personnel file and located a number of Jason Harshbarger, who was the ex-husband of Tyra David, the mother of Patrolman Ballard's daughter, in an attempt to attain Tyra's phone number for unknown reasons. Patrolman Ballard also stated that I was trying to, he stated, I am trying to understand why the investigation is still going on when there is confirmation, both written and verbal, via telephone from the doctor. And again, I put there that he continues to use untruthfulness and deceitfulness about his daughter's illness 15 days after he neglected to attend a mandatory training as scheduled.
So on May 22nd, he's still talking about the fact he took his daughter to the hospital. He doesn't know that he didn't go, right?
Correct.
And then, so those are all the Class C offenses?
Yes, sir.
At least 11 separate different lies to you and various members of the Peru Police Department?
Correct.
And then, did you write him up for a Class B offense, failure to attend mandatory training?
Yes, I did.
Is that number 12?
Yes, it is.
And what was that?
That was on May the 7th. He was to attend mandatory firearms training 3 o'clock here at the indoor range in our police department. He failed to attend. He arrived about 3:30, and Chief Keller had waited on him until about 3:12. Chief Keller had also held over another officer who was waiting on his own time to be a partner during this firearms training with Officer Ballard. So he had already been dismissed and was not down there at the time.
Okay. Did you then go into in your letter what previous disciplines he had against him?
Yes, I did.
And how many of those are there, if you know, total?
There's a total that he's been found guilty of committing 18 Peru Police Department SOPs since May the 15th of 2014.
And how many points, again, did he have prior to this, the May incident?
7.
Okay. And going back in time, did you list them in order? Attempt to?
I believe so, from May the 15th of 2014.
And the May 15th, 2014, what was Officer Ballard, what kind of discipline did he receive and for what?
He was charged with conduct unbecoming and disobeying a direct order from former Police Chief Joni Kennedy.
So this is prior to your arrival here?
Correct.
So prior to you getting here, he had accumulated a number of points without you being involved, correct?
Correct.
And on May 15th, 2014, he had been given a letter from Joni Kennedy for conduct unbecoming and disobeying a direct order. Is that correct?
Yes, it is.
Do you know what he did, essentially, to receive that discipline from her?
She had addressed an issue where a gentleman had contacted Chief Kennedy in the office to say that Patrolman Ballard was having an affair with his wife, that he had found some naked pictures of Patrolman Ballard on his wife's phone. He had addressed it with the chief. He had also, I think, at that point made contact with Jason Ballard. He was advised by Patrolman Ballard that Patrolman Ballard would back off and leave her alone. I know during the course, Chief Kennedy had advised Jason Ballard not to have any contact with the complainant, and I believe once he left her office after that meeting, he made immediate contact with him, and the complainant took it as a threat when Jason Ballard told him that he didn't want him talking to the chief. He didn't want him presenting the discs that had, I think, some emails and some conversation with this gentleman's wife and Ballard, and that told him that he was trading some kind of a threat to for him to tread lightly.
And did Chief Kennedy write a letter disciplining him for that?
Yes, she did.
And again, he was being disciplined for the fact that he was told not to go talk to this guy, and he left Joni Kennedy's office, and the first thing he did was go and talk to the guy he said he wouldn't talk to, right?
Correct.
And what was he written up for, if you know?
It would have been for the conduct unbecoming and disobeying a direct order.
That's something that was in his personnel file when you arrived?
Yes, sir.
Was the complaint in the file too, the citizen's complaint?
Yes, it was.
I'd offer Exhibit 9, just a letter from Joni plus the citizen complaint. Were the rest of the, well, there was a discipline on August 18th, 2014, failure to appear for training, correct?
Correct.
And that was Officer Assistant Chief Rick Keller provided that discipline, correct?
Yes, sir.
October 2nd, 2014, unauthorized subject riding in the vehicle. Do you know about this incident?
That was an incident where on October the 2nd of 2014, he had allowed his girlfriend, while he was on duty, to ride in his assigned Peru Police Department patrol vehicle. I believe someone observed that, contacted the police department. It was addressed by his immediate supervisor, Russ Tussey.
Okay, I'm going to hand you what's been marked Exhibit 10. You recognize that?
Yes, sir.
What is it?
It's the documentation where Lieutenant Tussey had a verbal counseling session about the incident of the female in Officer Ballard's car.
He was basically, he's taking his girlfriend for a ride in the car when he's on duty?
Correct.
What's wrong with that?
It's unauthorized to begin with.
There's no ride-along program.
There is not. There is a form that I think exists, or maybe currently does exist, that you can request permission for someone on a ride-along.
But he didn't do that.
No, he did not.
And are there liability issues if you have somebody just riding in your police car with you?
Yes, sir.
I'd offer Exhibit 10. So he was just given a written or a verbal discipline by his chief or his immediate supervisor?
Yes, he was.
It was Russ Tussey.
Correct.
October 20th, 2014, he failed to attend mandatory training again, and interim chief Rick Keller disciplined him. Is that correct?
Yes, it was.
And on April 9th, 2015, was he given some discipline?
Yes, he was.
What was that for?
For disobeying a direct order, and that would have been issued by myself.
And what direct order was that?
That was an order it was in the wintertime, and we had received some complaints of officers allowing their vehicle while unattended to be running. It was addressed in a command meeting that I had concerns that from several different angles, one being the vehicle being stolen. We have weapons in there that could get in the hands of the wrong people. The fact of the emissions, the fact of the cost of the fuel that we're wasting, and just the perception by the public who had complained of seeing police officers' vehicles running.
All right, I'm going to hand you what's been marked Exhibit 11. You recognize that?
Yes, sir.
What is it?
It is a letter from me to Patrolman Ballard about the incident on that date.
About the leaving his car running when he wasn't supposed to?
Correct.
Offer Exhibit 11.
You show Exhibits 6 through 11 inclusive permitted.
So previously he was at discipline level 7, and with these latest incidences in May, where do you believe he is on the disciplinary matrix?
He's at discipline level 21.
My hand has been marked Exhibit 12. You recognize this?
Yes, sir. That's a discipline matrix adopted by the Peru Police Department.
Is that the disciplinary matrix you're using in determining how many points he has and what discipline should be taken?
Correct.
I'd offer Exhibit 12. I don't have any further questions.
Okay, having no legal representative for Jason Ballard. Any questions for anyone sitting here? Your excuse.
Thank you.
Next witness.
Yeah, I'll call Dr. Jerry.
Excuse me, man.
Yeah.
I have.
Okay, sorry.
Chief, in your 11 allegations, there's, I think, a reference to a call or a text or something there on an untruthful text to Patrolman Colton, C-O-L-T-E-N.
Yes.
Was Patrolman Colton a supervisor of Patrolman Ballard, where he had any duty to report to him anything?
No, sir. I think the reason he did, he's another patrolman just like Jason Ballard. I think the reason he did was that Colton Pittner had made contact with Ballard, asking him where he was at because he knew he was not at training, and that was the first contact we had was through Colton Pittner.
Okay, so it wasn't something he was required to do, but he volunteered?
Colton Pittner, yes, sir.
Yeah, and the same with Ballard?
Correct.
Okay. All right, that's all.
Call Dr. Powell. Yeah.
Doctor, if you raise your right hand, please. Do you solemnly swear or affirm under penalties for perjury the testimony you're about to give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Can you please state your name?
Jerry Ray Powell, the second.
Will you please spell your name?
The whole name?
Yeah.
Jerry. Middle name's Ray. Last name Powell.
And how are you employed, sir?
I'm a family physician for Riverview Hospital, and I'm a ER physician for EMI plus PEP out of Fort Wayne.
Okay. My hand you what's been marked previously as Exhibit 13. You recognize that?
Yes.
And what is it?
It is a letter that I faxed to Ballard for a off-work note, or a note stating that he had been at the ER on whatever the date was. May 7th.
2015.
2015 at 1 o'clock.
At Duke's?
At Duke's, where he reportedly brought his daughter in to be seen.
Okay. And you agree that you wrote this letter?
Yes.
And would you agree that you did not see Officer Ballard on May 7th, 2015 at 1 o'clock or at any time at Duke's Hospital?
Correct.
You didn't treat his daughter?
No, sir.
Did he call you and ask you to write him a letter?
Yes, sir.
Stating, so that he could basically get out of being at work, correct?
What he told me was that he was late for a training session that day and couldn't afford to get the point, and was wanting to know if I'd be willing to help him out by writing a letter showing that he had been there to be seen.
Okay. I'm going to hand you what's been marked Exhibit 14. You recognize that?
It's the ER schedule for May 2015 at Duke's.
Okay. And in fact, did you work at Duke's Hospital in May of 2015?
No, I was not on the schedule.
And when's the last time you worked there, if you know?
I think my last shift was, I believe I may have had one in either March or April.
So like March of 2015 is the last time you worked there. So this is 2 months after that, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So you agree that Ballard wasn't at the emergency room. Well, he wasn't there to be seen by you, and you didn't see him or his daughter that day?
Correct. I did not see him or his daughter or his girlfriend that I said was there.
I'd offer Exhibits 13 and 14.
The record shows those admitted.
I don't have anything further.
Any further questions up there? Okay, your excuse. Thank you. Your next witness?
I call Pam Franklin.
Either way, raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm under penalties for perjury the testimony you're about to give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Can you please state your name
Pamela Sue Franklin,
and where do you work?
Duke's Memorial Hospital.
Did Chief Rainey come and speak with you in May of 2015?
He did.
And is it accurate that Dr. Powell did not work at Duke's Memorial Hospital in May of 2015?
That is correct.
And did you provide Officer or Chief Rainey a copy of the ER video surveillance from that day?
Yes, I did.
And had it been altered in any way?
No, sir.
Okay. And it showed who went in and out of the ER at Duke's Hospital on May 7th, 2015 from noon to 4 o'clock. Is that correct?
I believe it showed the entrances to the facility on those dates, the public entrances, correct.
Nothing further? I don't have any other questions.
Any questions? No? Your excuse. Thank you.
Thank you. Call Officer Rick Keller.
Solemnly swear or affirm under penalties for perjury that the testimony you're about to give should be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Yes, I do. Please state your name
Richard Keller,
and your position with the Peru Police Department.
Assistant Chief of Police,
And how long have you worked for the Peru Police Department?
since July of 2007.
And how long have you been the Assistant Chief?
Since May of 2013, about 2 years.
And were you the interim Chief of Police for some period of time before?
Yes,
Okay. And did you have occasion to discipline Officer Jason Ballard?
yes,
Before we get to that, do you agree that you and Chief Keller or Chief Rainey watched the ER emergency room videotape?
yes,
And did you observe Jason Ballard at any point come to the ER in Duke's Hospital
no,
on May 7th, 2015?
no,
And try to go back in order on these, but on August 18th, 2014, did you discipline Officer Ballard?
without seeing the document, I can't
Okay.
be for sure on the date.
My handy has been marked Exhibit 15. You recognize that?
Yes,
What is it?
it's a letter from me to Officer Ballard, taking into account the discipline violation that he had.
And what was that for?
He failed to attend mandatory training.
I'd offer Exhibit 15. Handy what's been marked Exhibit 16. Do you recognize that?
Yes,
And what is it?
copies of a letter from me to Officer Ballard with discipline for failing to attend mandatory training, a letter from Captain Vinipal to myself notifying me of the violation, and another letter from Captain Vinipal concerning another officer. And then a copy of the sign-up sheet for that mandatory training that he missed.
And Officer Ballard missed mandatory training?
Correct.
On what date? You know?
October 16th.
2014.
Correct.
And you disciplined him for that, correct?
Correct.
I'd offer Exhibit 16.
The records show 15 and 16 admitted.
And I believe this has already been previously introduced into evidence, but Exhibit 8, which was the letter from Chief Rainey to Officer Ballard. I don't have any further questions.
I noticed on the Exhibit 15, this was missing the mandatory training on August the 14th, that the disciplinary was a written reprimand. Is a written reprimand a point on the matrix? Is that
May I see that again, please?
Rick, along with that, it might be good that you maybe go over how the discipline matrix actually works. We're throwing a lot of numbers out here, but if you can kind of detail how that matrix is set up.
Yes, this is this discipline, to answer your question, Mr. Goff. It took into account his written reprimand dated May 15th of 2014 and the presumptive sanction by that matrix for the unexcused tardiness for this mandatory training was a written reprimand.
but it does count on the matrix? I mean,
Yes, it's part of the matrix. That's what it called for. And to answer your question, Mayor, the way the matrix is set up, it looks more at a pattern of behavior than an isolated incident, based on the severity of the different offenses that you could have. On one offense, a class, do you have a copy of the matrix? I can look at it while I'm talking. Like if you have the discipline matrix in front of you, like a Class A violation is the lowest form of violation, and when an officer commits a Class A violation, we're only taking into account the year prior to that violation to look at that year of history. What kind of history, if any, do they have? And that's how you that's where you start with if you have a first offense in 1 year, you start at a level 1, which the presumptive sanction is corrective action, which could be verbal counseling, could be verbal reprimand, something like that. Then when you move up to a Class B violation, which is a little bit more severe than a Class A violation, you're looking at the past 3 years because it's a more serious violation, so you want to know what the pattern of behavior has been for 3 years. And your first offense, if it's your first offense within 3 years, the Class B start at a level 2, which the presumptive sanction is a written reprimand. Then when you... Oh, go ahead.
Sorry to interrupt, but when you say previous offense, that would be any offense.
Any previous offense, anything in that 3-year window.
Yeah, not just the whole.
Right. Anything 3 years prior to that offense and to that date, you're looking for anything in that 3-year window.
Right.
Then when you move up to the Class C, D, and E violations, which are the most severe, we look back 5 years. So any violations in the 5 years previous to that. And again, like a Class C violation starts at a level 4, which the presumptive sanction is a 2-day suspension. On the sanctions, we also have a minimum and a maximum sanction if there's any mitigating or aggravating factors that may apply. To give an example, I believe the letter that you have from Joni Kennedy with Officer Ballard, I believe that discipline sanction called for much more than what he got. She ended up giving him just a written reprimand. She took into account some mitigating factors. Number one, I believe, what was his name? Mr. Mr. Hirschberger had called him. Jason didn't initiate the contact, but instead of saying goodbye, hanging up, and then calling Chief Kennedy and saying, hey, he just tried to call me, I'm notifying you, he proceeded to have a conversation with him against what she told him to do. So she took that into account there. And on top of that, his supervisor at the time, Sergeant Wood, had offered to basically take him under his wing and try to counsel him. Did I answer your question adequately?
Okay. Any other questions?
No,
For Assistant Chief?
no.
Yeah, your Chief. Any other-
I don't have any further evidence to present. I would submit to you that we've introduced documents that show a clear pattern of behavior by Officer Ballard that stretch back to 2014 in regards to his discipline history, that he was at a level 7 prior to May 7th, 2015, that when he missed the training on May 7th, 2015, that would have been simply a Class B offense that would have been enough points to probably make him think that he could be subject to being fired, because Ray had advised him of that prior to that date. And rather than be truthful and honest about what happened, he made up the story that you've heard in regards to him going to the ER and taking his daughter there, which is clearly not true. You've heard from the doctor, who states that he, in fact, wrote the letter on his behalf because he requested him to, that he did not see the doctor, that the doctor did not treat his daughter. You've heard that, in fact, the doctor didn't even work at Duke's. So, again, in many respects, the missing the training was the least of the issues. The lie, the cover-up afterwards was certainly more severe and worse. We're asking that Officer Ballard be terminated effective immediately.
Do you have any questions for Mr. Berkshire before we vote?
I think that it should be noted that Mr. Ballard is not here and has presented no mitigating factors.
Any other questions? I think the evidence is clearly been displayed on this case. I have no questions.
I know we're probably obligated to do the findings of fact and the conclusions and all those things at some point. Do we have to do that now before we?
I don't think it's required.
The findings of fact.
I mean, they're required, but whether they need to be typed up and handed to the board right this minute, that's debatable.
Well, under the open door law, you either got to
Get it done, and
you might as well do it and get it done and
Correct.
Proceed from there.
okay.
So we should adjourn then and
Well, you're not really adjourning, you're just recessing.
recess.
Okay, thank you.
Here. We'll call the hearing closed, or at this point, or recess, I'm sorry, until the final back from the